Hi, I'm James Renwick, Training and Development Manager here at Johnstone Training Solutions, and today we're going to measure the weight of air. So,
what are you doing? What are you doing here?
I thought I'd do one of the videos.
Go for it.
So here we've got a balloon, and we've got another balloon. Yeah, you do this.
Hi, I'm Eric Dillon with the Johnstone Orion Group Training Solutions, and today we're going to talk about actually how to weigh air. So today we're going to talk about air weight, and yes, air does have weight. We're going to talk about that and explain that to you in some pretty good detail. I just want to point out it's very important, and I've said this in prior videos, right? We work on air conditioning heating systems, right? The air movement, the duct system, it's equally as important as the equipment. And so it's very important that we understand that side of it, or what we call the air side of it. And understanding the air has weight, and that it takes horsepower to move that weight is a critical part of that. We're going to talk about that today. So the first thing we want to talk about is what's our standard? And we actually use the term standard air. And what standard air will be air at 70 degrees with 50% humidity. Obviously, if we have higher humidity, the air weight will go up. But for the purposes of measuring and our rule of thumb is we're going to use standard air, which is, again, 70 degrees at 50% humidity. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is grab your calculator, or for you younger guys, grab your phone. And we're going to do some math, so please do it along with me. Let's talk about the average size home, which is going to be about 1,200 square foot. You figure the average size home is also going to have 8-foot ceilings. So let's go ahead and use that phone or calculator, and let's multiply 1,200 times 8. Hopefully you all have done that, and you should come up with about 9,600, and that's our cubic footage, right? That's the total cubic foot of occupied space. Standard air, as we talked about earlier, actually comes in and weighs 0.075 pounds per cubic foot. So now if we take that and we multiply 0.075 by the 9,600, it gives us 720 pounds. So if you've never thought about it, right, the average home contains 720 pounds of air, right? How much horsepower does it take to move that air, right? Air change guidelines also tell us that we always want to target about 5 air changes per hour. There's varying opinions on that, but for the purposes of what we're doing today, we're going to talk about 4 air changes per hour. So if we take that 720 pounds, we weigh that, or multiply that by 4, that gives us a total of 2,880 pounds, right? So well over a ton, and almost a ton and a quarter of air that we have to move in an hour if we're doing 4 air changes per hour in a 1,200 square foot home with 8-foot ceilings. Starts to make sense why we have a 1/3 horsepower, 1/2 horsepower blower motor when you start looking at these numbers, right? I don't know about you guys. I can't. How many of you guys can actually move a ton of material in an hour? Some of us could. Maybe in my youth I could have, right? But can you do it hour after hour, day after day, right? So it takes horsepower, and it's worth mentioning that for all intents and purposes, horsepower is the equivalent work of 10 men, 10 average men. So it's just something to think about as we move forward, right? When we talk about how much force it takes to move that air, and then we have to figure in, you know, the supply grills, the filtration, the coil, right? All the things that provide external static pressure that are just resistant to that movement that motor now has to overcome. And you really start to understand why we're using the horsepower ratings that we're using on our indoor blower motors. Hopefully this explains a little bit about air weight and the movement of air and what we do with it. And for this and any other training needs, don't be afraid to look us up or come see us at the Johnstone Training Solutions, where we provide you with the real world experience for your real world career.